Good morning, just Patrick here from Complete Health, and we're just getting ready to open up and set up for the day. But I thought I would just quickly jump on and discuss something that I've seen walking into the clinic a lot in the last few months. I'm not 100% sure why we're getting so many cases, because interestingly enough, I've only really had, before the last couple of months, I've only really had about 4 or 5 cases of dizziness walk into the clinic. But actually, interestingly enough, in the last 6 weeks to 2 months, we've actually probably had 6 to 8 cases of dizziness walk into the clinic. Now, it's not something that I necessarily thought I could help people with a lot, but there are 3 main causes of dizziness. And actually, interestingly enough, every single case of dizziness that seems to have walked into our clinic in the last couple of months has really been helped. And so I just wanted to go through the 3 main causes of why people might get dizzy. Now, there are 3 sensors within our body, or 3 different areas within our body that will orientate and allow us to understand what's going on. So even if you're not feeling dizzy, these areas of our body are still involved in understanding how to orientate. So even if you're not dizzy, but you feel clumsy, or you feel disorientated, or you feel like you're falling a lot, then these 3 same areas could still be affected in your body. And these are some of the things that we know that we manage all the time in the clinic. So some of you would have already done these tests if you've been into the clinic. So number 1, the ears. The ears are probably one of the primary things now, especially when people get vertigo. So vertigo is that feeling of spinning out in the room. So say, for example, someone with vertigo may roll over in bed and it almost feels like they're going to roll off the edge and they're going to fall, and they're continuing to roll down a hill. Now, the reason why that starts to happen is inside of our ears, we have fluid which moves around every time we move our head. So if I'm moving my head from left to right, what's actually happening inside of my ears, there's like a fluid that's swishing around in my ears, and it's tickling hairs that sends a signal to my brain saying I'm moving my head left or right, up or down, side to side. Now, that orientation is a very quick signal to the brain. Now, say, for example, if that fluid is not doing its job properly, or the hairs are overstimulated, say, for example, in a case like BPPV, which is benign paradoxical paraphysiological, exactly, vertigo. But essentially, what happens is a stone comes loose in the ear and starts to roll around. Now, if that stone is rolling around and stimulating those ears, what happens is it almost feels like, to your brain, that you're rolling continuously. So what your brain is receiving a signal, because that stone is brushing past the hair, it's receiving that signal that you're still moving even when you're not. So it would generally, when you start to spin, it'll take about 20 to 30 seconds before that spinning starts to stop, and as that stone settles in the ear. Now, interestingly enough, this is probably one of the easiest cases of dizziness to resolve, and this is the one that we've been having the majority of in the clinic. And like I said, 90% of them have improved within a couple of visits, and all of them have improved within 6 weeks. All of them, their dizziness has disappeared within 6 weeks. Now, not so much on dizziness, but in disorientation. Now, disorientation and coordination is something that I measure with pretty much every single one of my clients. And so we look at balance, and we look at coordination. So standing with your balance, most people can stand with their balance assuming their eyes are open, which brings us on to point number 2. The eyes are very heavily involved with balance. So the reason why our eyes are involved with balance is if we're looking at an object like I'm looking at you guys now, I can fix on the object, I can stand on one leg, and so long as I can judge my distance, I can see what's going on. So say, for example, if I'm balancing with my eyes open and I see myself falling to the left, that vision sends a cue to the brain telling you to tense those muscles up on that side so you no longer fall. You catch yourself. Now, for example, if your eyes then start to be taken out of the equation, a lot of people will then start to lose their balance. So that really brings us on to the last one, because if you don't have your eyes, you then rely on this other area of balance. Now, this is the area that I see that we can really heavily get involved with, is spinal cord proprioception. So when we look at the way that the spinal column works, it is essentially one huge sensor. It's one huge sensor. So when we look at the spinal column, within each one of the joints, we have a little nerve that sends a signal to the brain when it tells us that joint is moving. Now, if a joint is not moving properly, the signal then becomes inhibited. It stops working. And if that signal stops working, the brain never receives the signal. If the brain never receives the signal, it doesn't know what to do. So again, e.g., if I'm standing with my eyes closed on one leg, and as you can see, balance then starts to go. What happens is we start to fall from side to side, your spinal joints start to stretch, and they send a signal to your brain telling you whether you're falling left or right. If the spinal joint doesn't move, guess what happens to the signal? It never stays. So when eyes and neck start to not work, it's a different sense of dizziness to what it is with the ears. The ears give you a spin, whereas the neck and the eyes tend to give you this feeling of disorientation. You almost don't know where you feel you are in the room. Now, obviously, chiropractors cannot help eyes. Generally, I would recommend obviously an optician for something like that. But the great news about all of these different areas is that chiropractors are heavily trained to understand all of these areas, so that even if this is not going to be the right place for you, we can send you to the right place. So we can triage all of those different areas, see what the best route is going to be for you, and then make sure you get the right level of care as quickly as possible. So if you are suffering with dizziness, don't suffer in silence, because it can be a hugely disabling condition. If you know someone that has been suffering with dizziness, please send them our way, because like I said, we've been having some huge successes with dizzy patients this month. Guys, if you've got any questions, please fire away. We always use dizzy and balance coordination based exercises and tests with all of our patients, because actually, funny enough, when you look at balance and coordination and dizziness, it actually is also linked in with stuff like your posture. So that ability to understand where you are in space not only helps you navigate, reduces your risk of injury, but actually it tells your brain actually where to hold the spinal joints and the extremity joints. Because again, if those parts of the brain are not working, then we start to slouch into weird postures, and that can actually start to lead to other conditions later down the line. So if you are suffering with dizziness, it is best to get it sorted earlier, because it can actually lead on to other things. Until tomorrow, guys, have a lovely day. It's looking beautiful outside again, so I hope we actually get maybe a little bit more sun this afternoon. Take care, and if you're coming into the clinic, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.